How's it going, YouTube? LtxPrisco here, coming at you something a little bit different. So let me tell you, I was one of the, I don't want to say I was one of the first Tenyi players, but I was definitely the only Tenyi player at my locals when they first came out in Rising Rampage. And let me tell you, I got some real spice. My very first Tenyi deck was a Tenyi invoked build, and it was actually featured on Exodia Man's channel, which I can link right up there, or I'll put it down in the description below. And I have a couple of older builds. The Tenyi invoked was one of them. I also had the giant ballpark insect build of Tenyi, which was really cool. But this one, with some of the new cards that came out, whew, this one's a real doozy. So this build is by no means complete, but if you've already clicked on the video and you're watching, then you know by the title that I'm using the Nemeses cards, as well as a very, very small Generaiders engine. I wouldn't necessarily say engine, but you know what I mean. Anyways, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and get right into the profile. But before I do, I just want to say thank you so much to all my subscribers who have been sticking with me through all of this. The goal right now is to get to 200 before the end of the year, and if we can do that, I will be doing another giveaway. If you were around for my last giveaway, then you know that my last giveaway I announced the winner in my last Tenyi deck profile using the synchro combo. But enough of that, let's go ahead and get right into the profile. Alright, so I do have the deck here ready to go. We're going to go ahead and get started. Sorry for the kind of crappy quality. I have to have my phone zoomed in quite a bit just based on the setup that I have right now. I don't have an actual camera, so I have to use my phone as my camera to make my videos. But that's neither here nor there. We're going to go ahead and get started. So we are playing 3 copies of Edhara. This is your level 1 Earth Tuner. This is the card that's being played in like Adamantipator right now. It's pretty good in my opinion. This kind of like replaces Glow Up Bulb in the sense of it being a level 1 Earth Tuner. Not to mention, all the Tenyi cards have the effect to summon themselves if you have no effect monsters on the field. So it's pretty free, especially as a starter card, but then again, all your Tenyi cards can be starter cards, which is pretty good. Next, we are playing 3 copies of Tenyi Spirit Vishuddha. This is the card that's being teched, or that was being teched into Orcust, or the going second Orcust builds that were being piloted by, you know, big names like Hani Jahari and so on and so forth. It's pretty good if you ask me. It's a level 7 Dark Monster, so cards like Dark Grepher and Armageddon Knight can get this card into the graveyard for you. But I'm not playing those because this isn't Orcust, this is pure Tenyi. Anyways, this is like a walking compulse. It does target, unfortunately, but it can force out some negates, which is pretty good. And then the new card, or kind of new card, this is the card that came out of Chaos Impact. This is Tenyi Spirit Ashuna. This one's pretty good because it's like a second copy of your Vessel. Almost, it doesn't send to grave, but it does summon from the deck, which is pretty good. So it's like kind of like a Rhoda or an E-Telly or whatever you want to call it. Next, we are playing 2 copies of Shatana. This is the best one out of all the level 4s, in my opinion, because if your non-effect monster gets destroyed by battle or card effect, you can just banish this from your hand or graveyard, and then you can summon it back and then destroy one of your opponent's monsters, which is really good. Then we are playing 2 copies of Nahada. This one is kind of like an Honest, where, except kind of reverse. It makes your opponent's monster lose 1500 attack if they're battling one of your non-effect monsters. So it can come up sometimes if you're like trying to push for game, and you just need a little bit more damage. And then I'm also playing just 1 copy of Mopora. I don't really like this one that much. It's a negate for any card that targets your non-effect monsters, but there's not many cards that there that target anyway. But it does come up every once in a while. And then I'm also playing 3 copies of Mirror. You can play 1, you can play 2. I play 3 just because I like seeing this in my hand. because you can discard it for cost and then summon it right back, which means that you didn't really neg. And that's it for the Tenyi monsters, and this is like kind of like a Tenyi monster. I'm playing 3 copies of Nemesis Flag to start off the Nemesis engine. The reason why I decided to play Nemesis with Tenyi is because the Tenyi cards all banish themselves anyway, and you only have 1 recursion card, which is Adhara. The Nemesis cards kind of do it for you without you having to use Adhara's effect. It shuffles them back into the deck, whereas Adhara adds it back to your hand. So it's really just however you want to play it and however you strategize. And for the rest of the Nemesis cards, I am playing 1 copy of Umbrella and 1 copy of Corridor. Now, they each have different effects, same summoning conditions, but different effects. This one is like a Rhoda, it adds to your hand. This one targets a banished Nemesis monster and adds it to your hand. And this one targets one in your graveyard and adds it to your hand. So they all have their different uses. This one being the Rhoda is the one that you play the most of. And then because if you really need to, you just search out these 2. And then most of the time, you're going to be searching out the boss monsters anyway, which is Protos and Escados. Escados is the one that has to do with types, and this one has to do with attributes. You banish 3 different ones of each type or attribute, respectively, to summon them out. And they both have similar effects that have to do with attributes and types. So this one, you declare 1 type, destroy all cards of that type on the field, and then your opponent can't summon, or neither player can summon any monsters of that type until the end of the next turn. And then this is the same thing, but for attributes. And then I'm also playing 2 copies of Destiny Hero Malicious, and the reason why is because this card can be heavily abused with the Nemesis cards, because you could banish it, summon another copy of it, and then use your Nemesis monster to pretty much shuffle it back into the deck, and then banish it again, and then summon it again, and you do that at least 3 times. And then for the rest of the one-ofs, I'm playing 1 copy of Pankratops because it's a good going second card, and this deck does like to go second, but admittedly, this is the only going second card that I am playing right now. And then I am playing 1 copy of Nidhogg, the Generator boss of Ice. Let me see if I can focus a little bit more. Oh, that did not help. Anyways, this is a worm monster, so it doesn't conflict with the deck at all. On top of that, it pretty much summons itself out for free using this, the field spell. Let me see if I can get this to focus. Autofocus. Not too bad. Either way, that's it for the monsters. Gonna go ahead and get into the spells. I'm playing 3 copies of Vessel. This is a Foolish Burial and Rhoda for the Tenyi archetype. It's also kind of generic for worms, at least the Foolish part is. But if you pretty much you send the worm from your deck to the graveyard, and then if you control a non-effect monster, you can just add a Tenyi monster with a different name from the monster sent to the graveyard to your hand. We're playing 3 copies of Flawless Protection of the Tenyi. This one says that your non-effect monsters are unaffected by monster effects on the field, and if your opponent summons special summons an effect monster while you control a non-effect monster, then you can draw 2 cards. This is pretty good. And then the other field spell is the Generator boss of Ice, or boss stage, and that's literally just for Nidhogg here. And then I'm playing 3 one-ofs, 1 Terraforming, 1 Foolish Burial, and 1 Upstart Goblin. So that's pretty much it for the main deck. We're going to go ahead and get into the extra deck now. So not too much to explain. We're playing 3 copies of Monk of the Tenyi. This is pretty mandatory. It's pretty standard. Any less, I would say, is wrong. 2 copies of Shaman of the Tenyi. This is like a really good combo piece, although really, it's really easy to like negate with like Imperm, but then again, any effect monster is. But this is one of the only main or extra deck effect monsters that you're really gonna play, and that's because this one can summon any worm out of your graveyard. So you most of the time are gonna be summoning out Mare. On top of that, if a non-effect monster or an attack is declared involving your non-effect monster, you can destroy one of your opponent's monsters on the field. So it's pretty good. And then we're playing the 1 Berserker of the Tenyi. This is your big 3K beat stick. For the rest of the Tenyi monsters, we're playing one Draco Masters of the Tenyi because it has really good link arrows. Its effect I really don't care about, although it comes up once in a while. It can pop cards on the field up to the amount of non-effect monsters on the field and in the graveyard, but it has to be the only effect monster you control. And then Sahasrara, which is the other really good Link 4 Tenyi monster, has a really good effect that can pretty much lock your opponent out of attacking your effect monsters, and they can only attack the non-effect monsters. Plus, it makes a really big token depending on if your opponent makes a really big monster. And then for generic Link 2s, I'm playing in Proxy Dragon 1 Landfoe. This can literally just be a second copy of Landfoe, but I like having some variety. And then I'm playing one copy of Equalmax, which can be really good for OTKs if you have like Berserker on the field with this card pointing to it and the Tenyi Field Spell, because the Tenyi Field Spell makes it so that all non-effect monsters are unaffected by monster effects. This card says that the monsters that this card points to cannot declare attacks and it gains its attack. But if you have the field spell up and it's pointing to like Berserker or even Monk, it gains that attack, and then your Berserker or Monk or whatever non-effect monster it's pointing to can still attack, which is pretty good. And then the way to create the lock using Sahasrara to make it so that your opponent cannot attack at all is by playing one copy of Crusadia Equalmax or Evermax, which is pretty good because you can literally just make this with any two Link 2s. So that's it for the links. For the synchros, I'm playing one copy of Draco Berserker of the Tenyi. You really only need one, but this is pretty much just like a Boral Sword, so you can go for game. I'm playing one copy of Dragite because you do have a lot of water monsters that you were playing. 5 specifically, technically. You're playing Mare, which is 3 copies of Mare, and you're playing 2 copies of Shithana, which is also a water monster. And then you're playing one copy of Yazi. This can easily be cut for anything else. It's just a good going second card. Anyways, guys, that's going to go ahead and wrap up today's video. If you like what you saw, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, like the video if you feel like I deserve it, and comment down below what you think. Like I said, this build is still in the testing stages, as are most of my builds, because I can never decide on what I want to run and what I don't want to run, and that is the reason why I'm running both a Generator engine and a Nemesis engine in this deck. But once I figure out which one I like more, to be honest, I kind of like the Nemesis engine, but going first, the Generator engine is very useful. So yeah, anyways, that's gonna go ahead and wrap up today's video. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. Subscribe if you haven't already, comment down below, like the video, smash that thumbs up button, and all that good stuff. Join my Discord, follow my social media, and yeah, I've got to get to class, so I'll see you in the next one. All right, peace.